Hi, this will be a video on a few things you may have forgotten about in Photoshop to get you started on printing. So let's go through it. Okay, so I'm going to be going over things primarily in Camera Raw. But before I open up my RAW file, there's something I want to check in Photoshop. It's something that you should take a look at before you start your work sessions, because it influences your color settings. By that, I mean your color space that's going to be attached to your file. It's something that I think we tend to forget about, but it's really important. So if you open up Photoshop, go to Edit, and go to Color Settings, you'll find this dialog box, and this is the default layout. If you notice under Working Spaces, RGB, this is set to sRGB. If you remember from your color theory class with Noah, or maybe a different class, sRGB is a very small color space, which means that the number of colors Photoshop has access to create your image is pretty small. But this is what Photoshop will attach to your file when you open it, regardless what you originally saved it in. So it's really important that you remember to look at the color settings and make sure it's in the color space you want. So to do that, we can go to the drop down, and I think it's generally a good idea to use the largest color space possible. So we're going to go Pro Photo. You can change these to reflect what you want Photoshop to do whenever you open up a file. So just take a look at this, make sure it's in the color space you want. Okay. All right, so let's go open up my RAW file. And I'm just gonna kind of pick something at random. Okay, so this is a RAW file from the Porcupine Mountains a few years ago. And I just want to go through a few settings in here that I feel will help you with your workflow. These are settings that Noah and I have talked about in terms of what would be a good workflow to get in the habit of doing, so that you have optimum results when you're printing. Okay, so first thing is down here at the bottom is your workflow option. You click on this, it brings up this dialog box where you can tell the RAW file what color space to attach and what bit depth to attach. You do have other options in here for color space. Pro Photo being the largest one, I believe, is your best choice. We want to preserve as much information as we can. And this is the default size. This is based on the size of the camera. I generally don't change that and leave that as the default. Okay. So in here, you can make choices depending upon what you want to do. Uh-oh. All right. So here's here are my initial settings in Camera Raw. I'm not going to get in too much with respect to some of these controls. I don't want to say anything that might be contradictory to. And if you recall, I think from discussions about sharpening, sharpening takes place along the edges of tonal areas. So I'd say where the sky here is separated from the landscape, or this river that's going through here. I don't want to apply my sharpening globally, meaning the overall image. I want to be selective about it and apply it only to the edges as much as I can. To do that, I can use masking. So if you press your Option key and then slide this, as you notice, as I increase this, it narrows down where I'm applying sharpening. So all of these white areas are places sharpening will take place. So because I'm refining the area that my sharpening is taking place, that means I can push these numbers up higher and get a better sharpening. Okay. It's one thing I like to do in Camera Raw. I tend to limit what I do in Camera Raw only because I don't want to add destructive things to my file, meaning that make a change to it which I can no longer reverse. The other thing I do like to do is go to Optics. I want to remove my chromatic aberration, which is going to show up as colored fringes around objects. This is typically an optical problem because of the speed which light travels. When light rays hit the shutter, deficiencies in lenses all contributed. So I like to remove the chromatic aberration. And then I also want to go down here to profile corrections and click this on. If you notice, when I click this on, the image changes slightly. And that's because it's adjusting to the lens I used. In this case, it's recognizing the camera I shot with, which is the Canon G10 PowerShot, and making the appropriate adjustments for it. When Camera Raw and each update to it is done, the company Adobe acquires new lenses, new cameras as they come out, and makes changes to things, or I'm sorry, updates things accordingly. So, so that's why it recognizes the metadata correctly. And why does this keep happening? Hang on. Some reason this keeps getting grayed out. Okay. Those tend to be the only things I tend to do. If the image is quite bad, then I will adjust the color and I will adjust the exposure. Generally, I tend to leave all of that to Photoshop because I have a lot more options and it's not destructive. Once I'm satisfied with any of my changes that I want to make to the raw file, then I'm going to open it up in Photoshop and work on it a bit more. Okay, so that's about it. Thank you.